Hi everyone, my name is Haley Hill and I'm a police officer for the City of Everett. As my final assignment for my Organizational Development Theory and Leadership class, I will be discussing the implementation of a change management process at the Everett Police. This process entails a change in the department's policing strategy, shifting from a reactive to a more community-oriented policing, where the department will engage with the city's residents to build long-lasting relationships. I will discuss the need for change, its driving forces, the process where its implementation will take place, focusing on how both internal and external stakeholders can leverage the process, how they can move forward with the change and successfully implement it. Throughout this presentation, I will analyze the department's current structure and recommend a series of actions to address barriers for the change they wish to implement, to include the expansion of one of their community programs, the Junior Cops Corner. This is my tentative draft plan for the change process, and I hope that at the end of this presentation, you will understand how this organization can leverage its resources to improve its overall performance, increasing public trust and producing solid achievements. For this change management process, I will be utilizing Causey, Desk, and Engel's Change Path Model, a framework that guides change through 4 steps. In the first step, Awakening, I'll conduct a thorough analysis of the organization, developing a vision for the future. Second, in Mobilization, I'll conduct a force field analysis in order to understand the driving and the restraining forces for change, pointing out how the organization can start to move forward with the change. Third, in Acceleration, I'll discuss how the department can start action planning and implementing the transition. Fourth, I'll discuss Institutionalization, where the organization will be able to track and gauge their progress towards their goal. In the end, I'll take you through a closing statement connecting all that will be discussed. In the last slide, you'll find a references section with all the material used to develop this plan. So, for a quick overview of the organization, the Everett Police Department is comprised of 112 sworn police officers and 10 civilian employees. The head of the department, Chief Maisie, is supported by 2 main divisions, Support Services Division and Operations Divisions. The change process we will further discuss will occur initially in the Community Services Unit, which is part of Support Services, but will be implemented department-wide. As society rapidly evolves, organizations are constantly improving through change processes to keep them relevant in such a globalized and competitive world. For the purpose of this presentation, we'll be analyzing the Everett Police Department. Due to the rising number of school shootings and increasing public concern regarding police use of force in our country, departments have seen the need to develop a stronger relationship between youth and the police. This change revolves around expanding Cops Corner, a community service initiative at the Everett High School, to the numerous K-8 middle schools. The program revolves around school resource officers hosting an opportunity for students to interact with different police officers during their lunch hour. Students from all schools in our city get the opportunity to ask questions and interact with police in a different environment, where they feel safe, building stronger relationships with the police. Overall, the department has committed more resources to working with residents in order to help address quality of life issues in and around neighborhoods. However, this change does not only affect the Community Services Unit, but the department as a whole. Initially, for this change initiative to be successful, the need for change needs to be determined, having a compelling vision of why it's needed and how it will benefit the entire organization. In addition, the process of change needs to be communicated properly, engaging internal and external stakeholders. Throughout the next few slides, we will discuss frameworks on how this change can be successful, creating a vision for the future of the department and engaging the employees of this organization. So, the Everett Police Department's vision is to promote professionalism, respect, integrity, and excellence in order to provide the highest quality of service to the community. As of 2017, Everett's long-term strategic plan has been to meet the department and community's needs as the city transforms itself to receive Encore Boston Casino, the largest private single-phase construction project in the history of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Although the website states the organization has a long-term strategic plan, there is a lack of oversight and accountability on all levels of the organization. Due to its rapid growth and lack of transparency, the strategic plan and the vision for the future of the organization is still not fully developed. therefore not being communicated to its members, and this is where the problem lies. The department sees the needs for change, but has not developed a strategy with the necessary steps that will assist them in doing so. So, for the key organizational challenges, the main issues surrounding the implementation of a community policing strategy to include the expansion of the Junior Cops Corner program is the culture in the department, where the internal stakeholders are still reluctant to accept community policing as a legitimate strategy in policing. Although our society demands a softer and more understanding approach to crime, the majority of officers do not believe in this vision, especially the senior officers, who still have a strong say on how things should be done on the streets. So, officers' perspectives were not taken in consideration when this change came upon, making it more difficult to understand such resistance. The initial Cops Corner program was implemented without an explanation of the need for it, and officers were randomly assigned to participate in it without any sort of formal training or an explanation of what types of results were expected from these interactions with the youth during their lunch hour. This made officers resent superiors who assigned them to participate in the program, affecting the overall performance of the program. In addition, officers were reprimanded when they did not perform the standards. Again, how are they expected to perform the standards if these standards have never been communicated to them? Neither have they been trained to develop such skills as active, empathetic listening, problem-solving skills, among many others. Two-way communication is crucial for everyone's understanding of the change process. Also, there is no system put in place to measure the success of the change initiative, or better yet, there's no data to back the initial need for this change and the expansion of the program throughout the middle schools. In addition, there is a shortage in manpower throughout the shifts, which leads officers to believe that the administration is not prioritizing the real needs of the organization. The change process occurred in a special division, as we said, the Community Services Unit, comprised of 2 sergeants and 4 officers. However, the change affected the entire department since officers in patrol and other specialty units were being pulled from their daily duties to assist with the program. Based on the change path model, the awakening phase would be the first step in the change management process. First, the department should have demonstrated the need for this initiative, educating officers on the benefits of community policing and on the new policing trends in the country. Administration should have used data from other departments that have similar initiatives and should have shown how it benefited them in the long run, decreasing crime rates in schools and creating greater student engagement with the police. Second, formal training would have been crucial to educate officers on the benefits of such initiative to the entire organization in its image, generating interest and engagement amongst officers who would actually want to volunteer and be involved. Third, this vision should have been communicated by not only the administration, but they should have recruited influencers in the department who would have assisted in easing the change process and rallying behind it. These officers would really be the motivators of change. Finally, after communicating the vision and need for change within all units of the department, external stakeholders should also be involved in the process of program implementation, understanding the police department's ultimate goal and how the Junior Cops Corner would ultimately benefit the entire city. So for step 1 in the mobilization phase, making sense of change, the police department is a mechanistic organization, relying on very formal hierarchy within a very centralized and strict decision-making, which ends up interfering with the effectiveness of the program and our strategic goals. For example, the program is led by SROs who have an office at the high school and are constantly dealing with the youth throughout the year. All the intelligence gathered during these interactions is kept between the 2 officers who are part of the Community Services Unit, when in reality, the data collected could be useful for future interactions between the youth and any other officers responding to youth-related calls. For Cops Corner, officers are randomly assigned by their shift commanders to take an hour off their day to come up to the high school, a different building, to interact with the kids during lunch. There is a gap in information sharing due to this hierarchical structure, undermining the conditions for innovation and strategy. According to Bowman and Dell, for the program to be successful, the administration needs to temporarily suspend hierarchical practices to advance creativity, allowing an open dialogue to happen, leading to organizational improvement. This means that the organization, instead of assigning or forcing officers to participate, they would ask for volunteers who are willing to be part of the program and ultimately support the change. Sergeants from each day shift, to include patrol and the investigative unit, would develop a sign-up sheet allowing officers to volunteer for whatever day they wanted to go. This way, sergeants would be able to keep track of the volunteers and would be able to compensate them with an hour of personal time to be used at their discretion. The vertical structure should be adapted to a more lateral structure, where meetings with the SROs, teachers, and other shift officers and a program coordinator, maybe a sergeant, would occur weekly, so the information collected through engaging with the youth could be shared amongst different shifts, also allowing for the stakeholders to discuss possible concerns, maybe improvements, positively affecting overall performance. In Step 2, our department's power structure has a hierarchical system where the chief holds all the power at the top and the officers are at the bottom. However, the power dynamics don't translate to that. In our police department, knowledge and personality power are what really dictate how others should behave with each other, how we perform our jobs, whom we go to with issues. This means that if the changes come straight down from the chief without engaging the real power holders, there will be an organizational-wide reluctancy to change. In addition, internal stakeholders are reluctant to accept change since they believe these changes do not go along with the department's structure in their basic underlying assumptions of what the police role in the community is. This goes hand in hand with the cultural dynamics in the department. The many policies and procedures in place require that all officers look a certain way, communicate in a certain way, and address issues in a certain way. How is it possible that the organization is pushing for a certain change but has in place policies that prevent that change from ever happening? The levels of culture inside the organization need to be reevaluated through a stakeholder analysis in order to align with this new strategic plan focused on community policing, where officers can look more like the community, facilitating this relationship building. If officers look more approachable and friendlier, their immersion in the community, which is ultimately what the department wants, will be more successful. In order to align these dynamics at play with the department's goal, the first step should be to start addressing the cultural values, norms, and beliefs. Our police department cannot build community trust if it's seen by external stakeholders, the city's residents, as an occupying force trying to come in only to control the community. We should instead promote public trust by engaging in non-enforcement activities such as, let's say, engaging officers to be present at community events, maybe block parties, school dances, games, meetings at City Hall, etc. By doing this, the department will be developing a culture of transparency and accountability to build public trust, where residents get to know officers by their names. We should also invest in intensive training regarding new policing approaches, especially to senior officers who at the time of their academy training had no access to certain training. Just in the past few years, innovative departments such as Cambridge and Somerville have started offering training to officers on interacting with individuals with mental health issues, how to recognize autism, dementia, bringing out a more human side of the police. The problem is that the only new officers have received these types of training, neglecting the real influencers in the department. The department needs to engage all stakeholders when attempting to change such a long-term culture so that every stakeholder has the ability to learn about the change, how to implement it, and why it's necessary. In the third step, the department needs to focus on communication, a key aspect in this phase of mobilization. It is at the individual level that the people decide to change, and their choices depend on their views of the situation and how it's going to individually impact their lives. Therefore, the department needs to create and communicate an image of change where the perceived benefits of this change will be greater than the perceived cost of change. Initially, when Cobb's Corner was implemented, patrol officers resented the department's administration because they took away an officer from the streets where they believed real crime occurs to do nothing at the schools. Department-wide, there were no perceived benefits to this change, but high costs, with officers sometimes getting forced to work an extra shift since they were at minimum manning due to the implementation of the program. On the other hand, the Criminal Investigations Unit did see more benefit than cost to this change. SROs at the school were able to collect information on gang activities and recruiting in the schools, assisting detectives in many of their ongoing cases, where without the SRO's assistance, detectives would have not been able to access that important information. The issue here relates to the lack of communication between the units in the department, where the benefits of such change were only seen by some. To fix this issue, the department should use their crime analysts to collect the information on cases or arrests that have had the assistance of Cops Corner program and put together maybe a weekly or monthly infographic to give officers visual proof of the benefits of the program for the organization and overall crime rates. Small victories should be celebrated in order to motivate and educate officers in this new strategic approach. Also, in order to facilitate the change process at the mobilization level, the department needs to create a stakeholder map so the change agents can quickly understand the different units in the department and analyze their interdependencies. By doing so, they'll be able to understand the stakeholders' individual needs, responses to change based on their personalities, their levels of influence, and how can they affect the overall change process. During this step, the external stakeholders should also be taken into consideration, since officers who will be engaging with the youth in the schools will also have to interact with school staff, who can also negatively or positively affect the success of the program. If teachers, coaches, guidance counselors are informed and involved in achieving such a goal, their engagement would ultimately leverage the change to a more community-focused policing. This can be done through weekly meetings in a more informal one-on-one approach with the school facilities. To conclude, another group of stakeholders that needs to be taken in consideration is the business owners and other organizations who have invested funds in the city of Everett, pushing for an overall improvement in the quality of life, which is affected by the services offered by the police department. Again, with the opening of the casino, citizens are concerned with the increase in crime rates and are looking for ways in which they can also engage in keeping their community safe. This is a great opportunity time-wise for the department to implement a community policing strategy. Finally, in the fourth step, when change leaders have adapted formal systems and structures to receive the change, they have to address the organization's culture, evaluating how to create better coalitions to leverage change and also communicate to all stakeholders their visions and the benefits that the change will bring. All of these changes and successes relies on how change recipients can be used as change agents for the department. As author Rosabeth Moss Cantor states, real change requires people to adjust their behavior, and that behavior is often beyond the direct control of top management. This statement sums up what is necessary to implement change in the Everett Police Department. Since change ordered from the chief down will encounter resistance for many reasons, as the top decision maker, he needs to create a change team to lead this implementation. This is mainly because this change initiative is a very large one, involving too many stakeholders, requiring more efforts to engage all the different units, shifts, and bosses. The bulk of the internal stakeholders are patrol officers divided into 6 different chiefs, consisting of a lieutenant, a sergeant, and 8 or 9 patrol officers. This change team needs to have representatives from every single shift in every single unit. These members don't necessarily have to be bosses, but change agents who have the attributes of a leader. Ideally, the members of this change team need to have strong communication and interpersonal skills, since they are the ones who will be the liaisons between the chief and everyone else. They need to share the vision of the departmental change. They need experience, they need to be respected, credible, and trustworthy individuals who can motivate others into action. As previously discussed, co-workers can influence stakeholders' views. Therefore, the leaders of change need to support this change while constantly listening to their recipients. Also, in such a big group, it would be beneficial to have the 4 types of change leaders: the emotional champion, the development strategist, the intuitive adapter, and the continuous improver. All of these have specific characteristics that can be useful throughout the process. The issue has always been that every community service initiative in the department was never communicated to the entire department, where the chief himself handpicked certain individuals to attend. Officers who would have actually liked the opportunity to engage in some initiatives would later on found out over Facebook posts and pictures, again, creating animosity between officers in different units. For example, the schools would reach out on Dr. Seuss Day asking for officers to come read for the kids. Every year, the same people are assigned for this event, and the majority of officers now see this as a scam and no longer want to participate. This would be a great opportunity for different officers to interact with the community and see firsthand the impact they can have in their communities, showing them the necessity for such a shift in policing strategy. The change team can also facilitate the communication of these opportunities to the entire department, not just the community services unit. This way, the department will build a stronger coalition to push this change forward. Now on to acceleration. As authors Causey, Deskin, and Ingalls point out, any action plan for change needs to be rooted in a sophisticated understanding of how the organization works and what needs to be achieved. Without a clear understanding of how this change will take place, whom it will affect and how, and a vision of what the results look like, an action plan cannot be drafted. Based on an evaluation of the Everett Police Department's culture, structure, stakeholders, and external and internal driving forces, it is safe to say that in order to implement a more community-oriented strategy, the department needs a major break from their past, changing their paramilitary image to that of a more approachable organization. According to Knight and Noria's assessment of generic change strategies, this continuous change would be the best fitting strategy to implement this change. This continuous change is recommended when an environment is changing dramatically and a continuation of activities based on existing assumptions will not work, requiring a change that is initiated from top down to include a change in culture and structure. To do so, the department's administration needs to engage in a participative approach where they will reach out to lieutenants, sergeants, and patrol officers in all different shifts and units, attempting to engage them in a way that leads them to accept the change in attitude and behaviors prior to changing their entire structure. First, the administration needs to provide department-wide training on the importance of community policing in this day and age, providing data and success stories to back up their shift in strategy. This type of training needs to be constant, furthering officers' knowledge in all that falls under the community policing umbrella. In every shift and every unit, leaders need to be selected to guide their groups towards this change. They need to select leaders who are charismatic, with good communication skills, and that understand this need for change. By having these leaders as constant supervisors and in close reach, the department will facilitate follow-through. These trainings can be focused on active listening skills, organizational transformation, officer safety and wellness, cultural responsiveness, and supervisors will ensure that they're giving feedback on how officers are implementing their knowledge and encouraging them when needed. Secondly, weekly meetings will be mandatory, widening the circle of communication in the department, giving everyone the ability to discuss each other's initiatives, progress, and results. This will give the initiative a more transparent and credible image, helping others jump on board. As officers begin to understand the importance of change, the department needs to start changing their policies and procedures. An example would be a more flexible uniform policy, allowing officers to express themselves differently. Also, the department should focus on compensating officers to engage in community-related events. This compensation does not have to be monetary. It could be offered in time off, for example. By having officers engage with the community in a different environment, other than responding to 911 calls, the administration will give opportunities for officers to see firsthand the impact they make in seeing the community in a different light. This community initiative will spill over to the schools, where the department will implement the Junior Cops Corner. This way, school staff will also have the opportunities to see officers in a different way, creating the image of a more approachable organization. The main tool to be used in this process would be the stakeholder analysis, where the administration leading the change would not only evaluate internal stakeholders, assessing how they behave and why, but also the external stakeholders and how they could help accelerate the shift towards community policing. The evaluation of internal stakeholders would point out who are the key players, their influence on other officers, influences on certain units, and it would also involve a commitment chart designed to analyze the engagement of each stakeholder. This way, the administration has a plan to strategically place officers who are strongly opposed to change with others that can positively influence them into accepting this strategic shift. When it comes to the external stakeholders, the administration would be able to engage the community and get real feedback on how they see the department's performance, what they wish would change, and how they could also assist to make it happen. For example, with the Junior Cops Corner program, teachers would have weekly meetings with a team of officers to share experiences shared by students, gauging if they have been positive or negative, giving continuous feedback on providing innovating ideas on how to develop better relationships. After conducting these analyses, the administration would then use surveys to capture people's attitudes, opinions, and experiences at a particular point in time, and then possibly track those over time. These surveys would also assist in data collection, which would be used for future strategic planning and implementation of other initiatives. These surveys would ideally be done prior to the change, during the change, and at the end of the time frame established for the community policing strategy, let's say a 5-year period. In addition, developing a communication plan would be crucial in consolidating progress and building momentum. As our textbook's authors argue, change leaders often find that misinformation and rumors are rampant in the organization, causing stakeholders to be reluctant. As mentioned earlier, when officers get assigned to participate in the Junior Cops Corner program, negative rumors started where officers exaggerated on discussing what they believe was expected of them and the reality of what was really expected. Since the program took place in one building, but other participants and organization stakeholders were in different buildings, not witnessing or being communicated what occurred by a supervisor, they tended to believe in inaccurate information. To better manage this transition, the change management team would encourage officers to better perform by encouraging and celebrating their community engagement efforts. To do so, social media and local newspapers would be used, publicly recognizing officers for their engagement. In addition, the recognition would occur internally, where officers would receive internal commendations by the supervisors being communicated to the department in roll call. A shift towards celebrating officers' achievements would change the environment, fueling positive feelings and better communication. It refers to a systemic adjustment where adjustments would be made to the processes used to reward and punish officers, reducing resistance to change. Also, the systemic adjustment would allow for the organizational restructuring, where officers who are more willing to engage in change, focusing on community initiatives, can volunteer to participate in the Junior Cops Corner program. If senior officers were compensated properly and given the opportunity to partner up with a young officer, you create more opportunities for engagement. In the chart to the right, an example of a responsibility matrix shows the actions that need to be taken to leverage the program, pointing out who is in charge of what activity and its due date. By utilizing one of these matrices, the administration can increase accountability and become more transparent with its goals and expectations of employees. Finally, in the institutionalization stage is where the police department can gauge their progress towards implementing the Junior Cops Corner program. It is in this stage that measurement and control systems incorporated into change initiatives can clarify expected outcomes and enhance accountability. If we were to take into consideration the entire change to a community-oriented policing strategy in the department, we could have numerous measurement indicators. However, since we're only looking at the implementation of Junior Cops Corner, it is safe to say that we should focus on the smaller change process first, giving us a chance to focus our attention on what is really important instead of losing track of measurements. For the Junior Cops Corner, possible measurements indicators would be external and internal stakeholder satisfaction, increase in trust in the administration, increase in morale, and data regarding police involvement with the youth, just to name a few. These methods have to be perceived by stakeholders as fair and appropriate in order to be accepted and legitimized. In addition, the measurements have to be simple and understandable. For example, for the administration to get a better understanding of how the organization's belief system changed, meaning how its culture and values have aligned with the program implementation, they can use surveys on employment satisfaction, their beliefs prior to and after the implementation of the Junior Cops Corner program, As mentioned in the acceleration stage, another measurement of the program efficacy would be the surveys conducted with students and school personnel prior to the implementation of the program and a year after. This would allow the crime analysts to collect data on their interactions with the police and what has changed. In these surveys, changes in levels of satisfaction and trust in police can be measured, which is ultimately the department's goal. Another metric of the program's success would be through the collection of data involving police and youth interactions on the streets. As discussed before, information collected during Cops Corner has assisted the Crime Investigations Unit in solving a greater number of crimes. By using this type of data to compare numbers prior to and after the implementation of the program shows how it's important to the department and its stakeholders. In conclusion, the Junior Cops Corner program is a small initiative that the Everett Police Department is taking in order to implement a bigger change, the strategic shift to community policing. As we have identified in our force field analysis, the driving forces for change are numerous. With the opening of Encore Casino, the community has expressed concerns about the changes coming to the city, and residents have voiced that they need a police department who will not only be proactive on crime, but will also engage more with the community. With the ongoing police legitimacy and abuse of power issue in our country, there is no better time for our department to start implementing these changes, especially due to all the funding available through the casino initiatives for the community. The funding will allow the department to engage in initiatives not before seen by the residents. Therefore, we should take advantage of these opportunities to promote positive change in our department. The implementation of the Junior Cops Corner program will be successful as a kickstart towards department-wide change only if we're able to carefully analyze our organizational culture and align it to what our vision of the future is. Before any change occurs in the police department, we have to make sure that we are ready for the change, minimizing possible challenges along the way. In general, we can say that the change is seldom a one-piece task. Mostly, it is a process that requires a sequence of steps and activities. By focusing on careful planning while addressing the needs of external and internal stakeholders, widening the circle of communication, making it as transparent as possible, we are able to move forward with the program. As long as the steps of the change path model are all addressed, engaging the officers and addressing their reluctancy to change at all levels, we will ultimately create an environment and culture that is receptive to any future changes. This is a very unique opportunity where careful planning, regular checks, and enough time for change implementation is required for us to have a better and more efficient department. For my personal reflection, as I have mentioned in my last discussion post, I strongly believe that this class has given me important tools to use in my organization as a change recipient and also as a change agent when the time comes. I've gained knowledge in multiple concepts of organizational change and have learned from my classmates who have shared their perspectives of change and its process in different organizations. It is interesting that although organizations are different, they all face the same challenges when implementing change. As organizations are trying to stay relevant, they have to constantly change and adapt to external and internal influencing factors. So, to summarize, I have learned that challenges will exist in every step of the change process, from the awakening stage all the way through institutionalization. Therefore, it is crucial that leaders assess their internal and external environment, their internal and external stakeholders' input on such change, and that they develop a strong vision of that need, so stakeholders can be mobilized. Without a clear painted picture of what the change is, what is expected of stakeholders, and how the change will benefit them long term, no organization will ever be successful at engaging their employees. I've learned that throughout this course, the only way change leaders can engage their stakeholders is by enabling a two-way, transparent, and positive communication. When leaders listen to others, value and consider their input, they're able to get newer perspectives. They're able to identify and address stakeholders' concerns while creating a positive environment. I've learned that when there is lack of communication or too much secrecy during an ongoing change process, stakeholders' concern levels increase, giving space for rumors and lack of trust in the process. I'd argue that culture and power dynamics in an organization are the most important concepts that I've learned in this class. As Shane explains, the culture of an organization promotes a particular way of thinking and feeling about certain problems. Therefore, when stakeholders are reluctant to change, it is crucial that change leaders address culture in order to align the change process to the organization, basing themselves on the power dynamics. Finally, the video "It Starts With One" really stuck with me. I really believe that there needs to be a champion individual from the lowest level of the organization to the highest, and that the individual who is there where the action really happens is the one who pushes for that change, motivating others. Therefore, if the right people are placed within the right position, they can motivate others to engage in the change process more easily by being the change they want to see in that specific organization. When it comes to applying what I learned in this course to my organization, I'd argue that as of now, there isn't much I can do to change the entire organization, as its root problem comes from years and years of influence from our patriarchal society in their expectation of what the role of police is. As it slowly changes in our society, I think it will change in police organizations. On an individual level, I have been doing my best to be the change I want to see, attempting to educate others in any opportunity I get on the importance of change and how it can be beneficial not only for the organization, but to every individual stakeholder. At the department level, as I continue to develop my skills, I think that when I make rank, I'll have a better probability of influencing and implementing my vision for a better department. This goes hand in hand with the power of one concept, where it takes one supervisor to start doing things differently, communicating better with officers for others to see the impact of transparent communication in overall performance, building trust in the department. Another way that I have found to apply what I have learned to my organization is to run for a position in the patrolman's unit, where I'd be able to be present during decision-making processes. My intention is to give patrol officers a louder voice, facilitating the communication between ranks and different units in the department. On an organizational-wide level, I think I could assist with being an individual that has strong communication skills and a good relationship with the overall majority of the department, enabling me to assist in developing a powerful vision of how the department will benefit from moving towards a community policing strategy. At every opportunity I get, I'm talking to other officers to understand how things were done in the past, how they think things should be done in the future, analyzing what could be done better, not only for our performance, but our overall work environment. Thank you, Dr. Perry, for giving me the opportunity to learn and develop such an in-depth knowledge of organizational change.